Empire Strikes Back, 1980. The Empire Strikes Back is the second installment in the original Star Wars trilogy, directed by Irvin Kershner. The movie continues the epic space saga, following Luke Skywalker as he trains with the wise Jedi Master Yoda and faces the dark forces of Darth Vader. While rooted in science fiction, the Force acts as a mystical energy source that gives the Jedi magical abilities. The battle between good and evil is intensified with iconic sequences like the lightsaber duel between Luke and Vader. The use of practical effects and magical elements like telekinesis and mind control bring the concept of magic into a futuristic context. Its complex narrative and deeper exploration of characters cemented its place as a classic in Hollywood. 2. The Shining, 1980. Directed by Stanley Kubrick, The Shining is a psychological horror film adapted from Stephen King's novel. The movie follows Jack Torrance, played by Jack Nicholson, who descends into madness while staying in an isolated hotel. The film introduces Danny, a young boy with the Shining, a psychic ability that allows him to see the hotel's horrifying past and future events. This magical power adds a supernatural dimension to the film, intensifying the terror. The movie's eerie atmosphere, combined with its exploration of psychic phenomena, has made it one of the most iconic horror films of all time. 3. Clash of the Titans, 1981. Clash of the Titans is a fantasy-adventure film based on Greek mythology, directed by Desmond Davis. It tells the story of Perseus, the son of Zeus, who embarks on a quest to defeat the monstrous Kraken. With the help of magical artifacts like the invisibility helmet and the winged horse Pegasus, Perseus confronts mythical creatures such as Medusa. The film's use of stop-motion animation by Ray Harryhausen brought these magical creatures to life, blending ancient myths with visual magic. Its grand tale of heroism and the gods' involvement in mortal affairs made it a standout in the fantasy genre. 4. Excalibur, 1981. John Boorman's Excalibur retells the legend of King Arthur and his magical sword, Excalibur. The movie depicts the rise and fall of Camelot, with characters like Merlin the wizard casting spells and foreseeing the future. The film's dark, atmospheric visuals emphasize the mystical elements of the Arthurian legend. Magic is central to the story, from Merlin's guidance to the power of the sword itself. Excalibur is celebrated for its beautiful cinematography and operatic storytelling, making it a classic interpretation of medieval fantasy. 5. Dragonslayer, 1981. Dragonslayer is a fantasy film directed by Matthew Robbins that follows a young wizard's apprentice, Galen, as he tries to slay a dragon to save a kingdom. The film's depiction of magic is grounded in its setting, with the protagonist learning to harness magical powers passed down from his mentor, Ulrich. The dragon, named Vermithrax Pejorative, is one of the most realistic and terrifying dragons ever brought to the screen through the use of cutting-edge special effects for the time. Dragonslayer blends traditional medieval fantasy with a gritty, realistic portrayal of magic. 6. The Dark Crystal, 1982. Created by Jim Henson and Frank Oz, The Dark Crystal is a fantasy-adventure film set in an alien world populated by magical creatures. The story follows Jen, the last of the Gelflings, on a quest to restore balance to the world by returning a shard to the powerful Dark Crystal. The film's innovative use of puppetry and animatronics creates a deeply immersive world, filled with magical beings like the Skeksis and the Mystics. The magic in this film is more spiritual and nature-based, exploring themes of balance and harmony. The Dark Crystal is a visually stunning masterpiece that remains beloved by fans of fantasy cinema. 7. Conan the Barbarian, 1982. Conan the Barbarian, directed by John Milius, stars Arnold Schwarzenegger as the titular character in this sword and sorcery epic. The film follows Conan's quest for vengeance against the sorcerer Thulsa Doom, played by James Earl Jones. Magic plays a significant role in the story, with Doom's shape-shifting abilities and hypnotic powers posing a serious threat to Conan. The movie also features magical objects like the sword Conan wields, which is believed to be enchanted. With its dark tone and brutal action, Conan the Barbarian remains a landmark in the fantasy genre. 8. The Last Unicorn, 1982. Based on Peter S. Beagle's novel, The Last Unicorn is an animated fantasy film about a unicorn who discovers she may be the last of her kind. The movie's plot is steeped in magic, from the unicorn's transformation into a human to the powers wielded by the villainous Red Bull. The film explores themes of immortality, loss, and the endurance of magic in a changing world. The animation style and haunting score give the film an ethereal, dreamlike quality. The Last Unicorn remains a cult classic for fans of animated fantasy. Something Wicked This Way Comes, 1983. Something Wicked This Way Comes, directed by Jack Clayton and based on Ray Bradbury's novel, is a dark fantasy film set in a small town. A mysterious carnival arrives, led by the sinister Mr. Dark, who grants wishes at the cost of the townspeople's souls. Magic in this film is malevolent and manipulative, with Mr. Dark using illusions and enchantments to deceive and trap people. The film explores the darker side of magic and its corrupting influence, blending supernatural horror with a coming-of-age story. Its chilling atmosphere and magical elements make it a hauntingly memorable film. 10. Craw, 1983. Craw is a science fantasy film directed by Peter Yates that mixes medieval fantasy with science fiction. The story follows Prince Colwyn as he embarks on a quest to rescue his bride from the evil beast. Along the way, he encounters magical creatures and uses the glaive, a mystical weapon, to defeat his enemies. The film's unique blend of futuristic technology and ancient magic sets it apart from other fantasy films of the time. Although it was not a box office success, Craw has since gained a cult following for its imaginative world-building and magical elements. 11. Return to Oz, 1985. Return to Oz is a dark fantasy film directed by Walter Murch and a sequel to The Wizard of Oz. In this film, Dorothy returns to a much darker and more dangerous version of Oz, where magic has gone awry. She faces off against the evil witch Mombi and the Gnome King, both of whom wield powerful magic. The film's tone is much darker than its predecessor, with magic being used for sinister purposes. The surreal visuals and eerie magical elements make Return to Oz a unique and underrated fantasy film from the 1980s. 12. Lady Hawk, 1985. Directed by Richard Donner, Lady Hawk is a fantasy film about two lovers, Navarre and Isabeau, who are cursed by an evil bishop to never be together in human form. By day, Navarre becomes a wolf, and by night, Isabeau becomes a hawk. The film's portrayal of magic is tied to the curse, and the story revolves around breaking this enchantment.